Thank you all for joining today. We will be talking about tips and tricks for digital efficiency. My name is Melanie Lucas-Conwell. I am an MBA graduate student from Presidio Graduate School here in San Francisco, focused on sustainability and sustainable finance specifically. Before starting this program, I used to work for Google for almost 7 years. And during that time, I learned a lot about how to use Gsuite and other computer tricks, mainly for purposes of, or having to learn how to be faster on my computer because there were so many things to do. So as I've talked to different people and done different roles, especially starting school, I have found that a lot of these tricks have come handy, and this webinar came from a couple of classmates asking me, hey Melanie, you seem to know a lot of things about Gsuite and general computer efficiency. Can we learn this stuff too? So here I am today and glad to have you all on board. Because we are recording this session, I ask that we keep questions for when between sections and towards the end, but Alexi is going to be helping me here manage the chat box. So if you have any questions or troubles, please do go to the Zoom chat box and ask the questions there, and we'll get those answered fast. So what we'll cover today, we'll start off with some quick keyboard shortcuts. My main principle when I'm using my computer is to not touch my mouse at all and rather use my keyboard so that I'm not being slowed down by having to move my cursor to one tab to the other and just move around a lot faster and efficiently. Then we'll go into Google Chrome. Most browsers work similarly, so if you're not Chrome and you use Safari or Mozilla, you might still find that a lot of what I'm talking about is similar. Then we'll move into Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Docs, at which point we'll move from personal efficiency to more group efficiency too, and then touch on project management tools. And then for all of my classmates and other Presidio folks, we'll talk about Canvas management and how that integrates with everything else we've talked about, since that is a big piece of all of this. And then we'll go into Q&A. So logistically for this session, to get the most out of it, if you have a monitor or a second screen, I recommend using that so that you can have Zoom on one side and your own browser on the other. If you don't, I'll give you a tip very soon. This is a hands-on session, so I recommend actually following through. I will give you step-by-step, this is the keyboard shortcut to use, do it and see what it does for you. And then actually testing it out, writing notes if you have paper and pen next to you. And then, as I mentioned, Zoom chat box, if you have questions, Alexi will help me answer that. We'll allow 15 to 20 minutes at the end for Q&A. And I apologize for all the Mac users. I have a PC, so you might have to, quote unquote, translate some of the keyboard shortcuts, but I found some tips around that as well. So as we get started, the first thing that I ask you all to do, on Mac, or on PC, this will be Control-T. On Mac, this will be the command little squiggle icon, Command-T, so that it opens up a new tab. And then type in bit.ly/digital tips and tricks. Tips, tricks, plural, all lowercase. And shortly, I should see the number of people up here. I'll pop up and add more of you on here. And then you can go, there you go, that number is increasing. And you can go to File, Make a Copy, so that you have this deck and can take notes along. And you can take note of what time this is at, so that on the recording, you can look at the timestamp and see at what point in time this was happening, and then go back to it later on if you felt like you were missing anything. And if you feel like you're falling behind, you can go back to your version of the deck and click around. I've tried to hyperlink as much as I could around here so that you can easily find yourself. And you'll also notice, it's being hidden by the Explore button, but there we go. The slide number is also on here. So I've tried to make it as easy as possible for you to find yourself through this deck and take notes if you feel like you need to catch up. And congratulations, you've already learned your first keyboard shortcut. Control-T or Command-T for Mac users opens a new tab. The next thing, especially if you are using one screen right now, if you do Alt-Tab, which because I'm presenting on Zoom, you can't see it, but if you do Alt-Tab for PC users and then for Mac users, I believe it's Command-Tab, you'll be able to navigate through the different programs that you have open on your computer. And if you do it just one time, one tab, you'll be able to get to between the Zoom screen and the PowerPoint or the Google Slides presentation that I'm giving you right now, so that you can alternate between watching what I'm doing on my screen through Zoom and the presentation itself rather fast, so that you feel like you're still getting something even if you don't have a second monitor screen, which is pretty handy. Then another keyboard shortcut that I find very helpful, especially when putting these decks together, is, for example, down here where I have this Key Rocket tool, I can easily do on PC Control-K, and it will open up this box where it'll have the text and the URL right here, so that I can say, hey, check out Key Rocket, but actually the link will be right there. So applying it right then and there so that you have everything hyperlinked very easily. The other thing is you can do Control-L on your browser and it will highlight the URL. So if you look at the URL bar on my computer and screen right now, you will see Control-L highlights all of that. And that way I can easily navigate between different places. For example, if I wanted to go to this deck, like I suggested for you guys, digital bit.ly, digital tips, tricks, it would very fast get me back to the presentation, all by doing Control-L to get back to that URL bar. Another thing is on your computer. For PC, this will be the Windows key on the computer. For Mac, it's usually Command-Space, I believe, that you can then search where it says type here to search at the bottom left of my PC, but for Macs, this will just pop up. If you just do the Windows key, it will automatically get you into the type to search bar, so that I can automatically start searching for, say, my display settings, or I could do my second screen and make sure that I'm projecting to you guys correctly. And on Mac, that would also be the same. I can also search for different files on here. So if I wanted to look at all of my PGS school folders, it will all be here as well, all in one, without having to navigate very fast and having to click around and dive through different things. And to get out of it, you can escape. You can press the escape key on your keypad as well, versus having to click through and do everything else. The other thing is, to me, it is personally fun to find out about all these keyboard shortcuts, but it's easy to forget about them. So on some programs, you can do, for PCs in particular, you can do Control and then the / that I have listed right here. And it will show you this list of keyboard shortcuts that you can do right away. So if you were looking to do something much faster, say you're constantly doing text formatting, or you need to be navigating around much faster and zooming in and out, or finding different things, you can easily find what that keyboard shortcut is so that you are speeding up your time through different programs on your browser. And to get out of this, instead of pressing the very tempting little X mark at the top right, instead of that, I'm pressing escape, the escape key on my computer, to get out of it. And then another quick hack around this, when it comes to keyboard shortcuts, there's a program called KeyRocket that is very convenient, and you can get a free download for a couple of days that will teach you all of the keyboard shortcuts much faster and for a lot more than just Google Chrome. They'll also do it for a lot of the Microsoft Word tools such as Excel. And every single time that you click on a different tab, for example, it will tell you, hey, here's a keyboard shortcut you could have used instead of this mouse action that you had here. And to close out, so I recommend downloading it. It's worked very well for me, and that's how I started learning a lot of keyboard shortcuts and getting a lot faster, by having this constant reminder of, oh, instead of going to the little bold icon on Excel, use Control-D, and it does it for both Mac and PCs. Now, to get out of this window, I'm going to do Control-W on my PC, and it will get me back to the presentation from here. So that's it for keyboard shortcuts. I'll keep mentioning a couple of others as I move through it, so that you're all getting a sense of how you can move faster without having to use your mouse. Especially if you use Excel a lot. I know a lot of folks do. Using KeyRocket is much faster than a lot of other options. So now moving into Google Chrome itself, which is my browser. As I mentioned before, if you're using, say, Mozilla, Firefox, or if you use Safari, a lot of what I'm mentioning might also apply. I don't know their functionalities very much, but I imagine some of these things are very similar. So the first thing in particular for people that use both their personal emails and their work or school emails all in Chrome, the main tip that I have for you to keep things separate and make sure that you're not logged into the wrong account at any given point in time is multiple accounts. So if you see up here, I have this little green person, and if I click on it, you'll see that I have all of these different accounts. And if I were to click on any one of them, it essentially has a whole other Chrome instance that it will open that I can control and use and have its own history that is very separate from the current account that I am logged in, which makes it great to keep my personal and my school email addresses separate from each other, so that I'm not having to request access to different files and folders from a different email account, and just having my Gmail separate and having to re-log in multiple times. It keeps things very separate and really great. And you can do this by, down here, as you probably don't have the same list as I do, you can go down here and do manage people and then add a person and go through that flow and sign into that additional account. Highly recommend doing this, especially if you have more than one Gmail account. Makes things a lot easier. The second thing is, if you go to your Chrome settings by going in the little 3 lines and then settings, or the 3 dots and then settings, is that I highly recommend syncing your account so that you have everything in here tied to your Gmail account. And if, God forbid, you lost your laptop or your computer shuts down unexpectedly, then you'd be able to recover everything. All of your history would be here, your bookmarks, your logins, etc. Everything is stored so that you don't have to start over all over again, or you don't have to forget everything all over again, which is very helpful, especially if you were to lose your laptop for whatever reason. The other thing is you can create different search engines. So if you scroll down, there's a section called Manage Search Engines. So there's your standard Google, and you'll notice that if you do Control-T on PC and you were to search, cute, puppies, and you pressed enter, you would then get the search from google.com automatically. And what that is a quote unquote custom search. So if I do Control W, close that tab, gets me back to my settings. It's this first line that is bolded. What I've done is I've also created other search engines. A lot of these are automatically created when you go to their website. But I've done things like, for example, for Google Drive, if I were to edit it or add it, I can use this keyword, G Drive, to search for, so if I do G Drive and then press tab, it'll automatically search my Google Drive folder. So I could look for, say, meeting notes, press enter, and it will automatically search for all of my meeting notes all the documents in my Google Drive folder that have meeting notes in the title, which saves a lot of time. So if I do Control W again, save that. And one thing that I do, especially as I'm looking for jobs and doing different things, is with LinkedIn. So, and I've made this easy for you guys in the deck. You can automatically, this URL right here, I've copied and pasted into the presentation slide. So you save yourself a little time there. But if I were to do Control T, opening a new tab, I type in LinkedIn and then press tab. You're going to search LinkedIn for, say, myself. Press enter. Now, apparently I don't exist on LinkedIn. Well, that's fun. There I am. Usually it works. So there we go. You can use LinkedIn very much faster this way. And then if I Control W again, another quick trick, every one of these tabs you can do on PC Control 5 and it'll get me back to the 5th tab on my browser. So I can often do, say, I'm on whatever tab I'm on, and I can do Control 1 to get to my Gmail, Control 2 to get to my calendar, Control 5 to get back to our presentation. And what I've also done is you can pin tabs. So if I were to right click on this tab on for the presentation, and I don't know if you guys can see the highlighting or not. Yes, you can see there's a pin tab option. And what that will do, it'll make it a much smaller little icon, which is handy when you have a lot of tabs open. And it will automatically keep it to the left of your tabs so that no matter how many new tabs you open, it will always be there at the left. In case I'll unpin it so that we can keep seeing the name of the tabs. But I've done this, you see, for Gmail, for Google Calendar, Google Drive, and Asana. And we'll talk about later. And then a couple of other things that I've installed. Chrome has a lot of integrations with different programs. So particular ones that I've loved are bit.ly, which you guys got to see to get to this presentation. It shortens URL. So if I were to click on my bit.ly extension, it will automatically create a shortened URL for this web page so that I don't have to have the really lengthy docs.google.com/presentation, blah, blah, blah. And you can even customize it so that it is something that is recognizable, like I did with the digital tips tricks URL. And you can share that rather well. The other thing is context menu search. So this one, if we went to it, the idea is that you can highlight any text, Chrome extensions, for example, right-click on it. Oh, it won't work in here. But if I went to, say, Chrome and I searched for my lovely name again, I could highlight my name, right-click on it, and then you'll see context menu search. And then I've added the option for this to go directly to LinkedIn. So if I were to click on it, it will do the same thing as the custom search, where it'll find me right away. Or I can right click on it and go straight to, say, Wikipedia, which won't have any results. However, could be really handy if you're doing research, for example. So back, Control 5, back to the presentation. A few others, particularly for students. Zotero bibliography is another handy one. So I can add items to my bibliography that I've created in Zotero rather fast. Another great one is Zoom. So this client, if I wanted to schedule a meeting right away or start with a meeting, I could do that right from Chrome and invite other people. And then another cool one is send this link with Gmail. So if I click on that, it automatically opens Gmail and has the link to this presentation so that I can start typing, hey, I want to send it to whoever, and then automatically send it to this person. All of that with very few clicks rather than having to go back to Gmail. The other quick tip is for some websites that are particularly illegible, you can do Control for PC, Command on Mac, and do plus or minus so that you're really enhancing your view and zooming out so that all of it gets smaller, particularly look at the top. And if I want to reset the zoom, you can do Control 0, and that will bring it back to normal. And you can always see at the top this little gazella and increase the zooming in and out if needed. I'll reset it. Let's quickly Google Chrome. Any questions on Google Chrome at this point? Great, sounds good. All right, moving into Gmail. Gmail is a fun one. There are a lot of settings in here that one can play around with. And the first thing is, for everyone that's on this call, I'm doing Control 1 to get back to my Gmail. And I will go to my settings and do, so the little gears icon, settings, and then go to settings, open that up. And as you scroll through, I recommend everyone spends a little time. This is the best way that I have found to set up my Gmail. Everyone will have their own preferences that they have. However, think about all of this and do it as we go along. Undo send, the default is 5 seconds. I've done it to 30 seconds so that I have 30 seconds from the moment I press send to decide, whoops, I have a big spelling mistake and do not want that. That's a handy one. I've also made my default reply behavior to reply all. Oftentimes I have found that I will want to reply to everyone, but in a haste, I will just reply to one person, have to resend to everyone else. So I've just made my default reply all, and that way I don't have to worry about it. I also like to auto advance my email so that particularly if I'm going through newsletters first thing in the morning, once I press send, it will automatically take me to the newer conversation instead of going back to my inbox. So especially if I'm setting myself 30 minutes of time to go through emails and answer things, it's a lot faster and saves me a couple seconds that add up really fast to get through Gmail that way. From then on, I'll sample things. Gmail has added a lot of new things like suggesting emails to reply to, suggesting emails to follow up on, which I highly recommend enabling since it makes inbox management a lot faster this way. The other thing I'll mention is under the advanced settings. So I have, as I mentioned, auto advance is enabled. I also like to use canned responses templates, which I've enabled. And let me show you what that is. So on my keyboard, if you don't have keyboard shortcuts enabled, you'll need to enable this. However, once you have it enabled, I can press C to compose an email. And down here in the little 3 dots, more options. Once you've enabled canned responses, you'll see canned responses up here, and you can save and delete responses, but you can insert them. And so in the last few days since sending out this webinar, I found myself saying this sentence a number of times. So instead of having to rewrite it every single time, this canned response allows me to tell you, oh, if you registered for the webinar through Eventbrite, you'll automatically get this webinar recording and slides in the coming week. Again, short little time savings that add up really fast. And then enabling custom keyboard shortcuts, as well as multiple inboxes. And this one is really for the Gmail power users, and I'll show you what that looks like. So once you have this all enabled, make sure that you press Save Changes at the bottom. And then let me show you what multiple inboxes will look like. And this is it at the top, TNT Webinar, Tips and Tricks Webinar. So in this case, I've created under my settings and under multiple inboxes, I've created a search query for any email that I've labeled TNT Webinar. It will go to the top of my inbox so that I can see these all the way at the top. And you can do this mainly using filters and labels, which makes things a lot easier to manage your inbox. I've set up rules, for example, to receive emails from my boss and show them at the top, emails from professors, very important emails. And the way that you would set this up is up here where it says search email. You would do, for example, to Melanie Lucas-Conwell. So that would be anything that is sent to me. And then where there's that little drop-down arrow, show search results, you can play around with this and do either if it's to me or if it's from my boss, which I don't have one right now. But if I were, I would enter their email address here. So in case, I'll put myself here. And then whatever other criteria you might want to have, you can create a filter. And here I'm going to do Control- because the screen is too big. You can set up different rules here. And so in this case, what I've done is I apply the label, and then I have TNT Webinar down here. And if you don't have any labels, you can do New Label. Apply the label. And you might also want to also apply filter to matching conversations, and then create filter. And so you can do this for a number of things, as you can see. You can mark things as read, you can send them to spam, never send them to spam, categorize them in different ways so that you're getting things in and out of your inbox rather fast. The other thing is that I have done, so if I go back to my inbox, one quick trick that people don't know is if you have your email address plus something else, it still considers this your email address, but you can set up labels and filters this way. So in this case, whenever I go to restaurants and they need my email address for whatever reason, or for newsletters or whatnot, in some cases I do my email address plus spam. And I've created a filter through here, so I can do Melanie Lucas-Conwell plus spam, and I can search for that and create a filter, and then skip the inbox and delete it automatically, because I don't want those spam emails. And since I've told people this is my email account, and please do send me, but really don't send me email addresses, well, it will automatically create that filter once you press Create Filter. So quite handy. I've done that for news. I've done that for other things too. So those are kind of the main things for Gmail. One other thing that I'll show you if you compose, you can set up groups of people. So in this case, you would actually go up here where it says Google Apps, and then Contacts. And you can select multiple people. So in this case, I've created myself a couple of fake email addresses with this plus trick. And I've added them to a group that I've called TNT Webinar. So if we do a new group, new webinar, press OK. Now they're all these email accounts are under the group webinar. So when I go to create a new email, I can automatically search for to webinar, and automatically all those email addresses get added to that email account. So that's particularly handy for colleagues or groups that you work with frequently, so that you don't have to be typing one by one every single time. And this will also work for Google Calendar, for example. So now doing Control-6 to get back to the presentation. The other thing that I'll mention is muting threads. So if you're on, say, a group thread and it's a Google group, it's a generic email account, you can press, once you have keyboard shortcuts enabled, you can press the letter M or go into your settings to mute that thread, and it will no longer show notifications if there's a new email in that thread, which is very handy for long, lengthy groups that you don't particularly care the conversation for. I'll mention one thing with Gmail for those that use Gmail a lot, particularly for work. There's an extension called Boomerang that will schedule emails, get follow-up reminders, and kind of help project manage your Gmail account. That is quite handy. So if I were to go back here, one thing that it does is pausing your inbox so that you don't see any notifications, which I've done for this webinar. So I can then pause and unpause my inbox, especially if I'm working on something. But if I were to write a new email, I can do send later, and it will ask me when I want to send that email. So particularly if you're working on emails late at night or want to send things over a weekend, you can send all of this and not have to worry about going back to Gmail to press send. It will do it for you automatically. And then you can also do remind me in X number of days about this email if no reply or if it hasn't been clicked and not opened, etc. So very handy. I won't go through all the functionalities because they have a good number of them. Now moving into Google Calendar, which I live by because I've made it so in my life. Because as you've seen by my list of all the Google accounts, I manage a number of email addresses. And what I found very handy is that I've shared and made editable my Google Calendars across my personal and my school email address, which I also used to do with my work account while at Google, so that I can manage both of my calendars in one place. And so what that looks like is I have my personal calendar in green and I have my school calendar in blue, so that I can manage both all in one place and not have to worry about going to two different tabs, two different calendars all at once. And if I want to go back to today, I'm going to press the letter T and it will take me back to today, which is very convenient. So from here, we'll go into the settings and kind of explore those. If you manage multiple time zones or have different locations that you work with, I recommend displaying a secondary time zone so that you can see automatically in your Google Calendar, you'll have a second column for that time zone, which is really nice. I also, because I manage a number of people, that I would do default guest permissions or a number of calendar invitations. I mark it as by default, my guest can modify the event. so that I don't have to worry about, oh, if I tell someone else, please edit the event to move it to another time, they're able to do that without having me doing it. It just takes one thing off of my plate if everyone in the meeting is able to change the invitation. So I've made that the default, and I make sure to uncheck it if I don't want people to have it there. It also, so you have all of these different possibilities. One thing that I do recommend having, especially if you have a lot of Eventbrites like this, is automatically adding events from Gmail to my calendar. So that's quite nice. For your work calendar, also recommend enabling working schedules and using keyboard shortcuts so that you can go through much faster. I see Rory is asking about, can you set up 2 separate calendars so each group cannot see the other calendar? Yes, you can. So if I were to go into my settings and share with specific people, I can then say, see all events, see only free, busy, or high details. So I can see what kind of settings that other person sees. And in this case, my dear boyfriend has access to my school calendar, so he can see when I have classes and assignments due, which makes my life a little bit easier. I've also set it up so that my event notifications always come in 10 minutes before the actual event, but you could change this to different minutes, different times, emails as well, instead of just notifications, so that I'm rather on top of what's on my schedule. And speaking of, we have about 20 minutes left in the webinar, so I'm going to speed things up myself. The other thing that I recommend doing if you have a Zoom account is to set up the Zoom extension. So if you were to go, so Control-T and then zoom.us/profile, if you go to your Zoom account details, you can set up an integration with Zoom between your personal email and sign in with the account. And I'm forgetting where it is exactly. There's a calendar integration that you can have so that when you're in Google Calendar and I set up, say, a new meeting tomorrow morning, I can make it a Zoom meeting right then and there. And by pressing this button, it will automatically add my Zoom URL here and at the bottom so that I don't have to automatically type it in and search for it somewhere. And that saves me a lot of time as well to make a Zoom meeting with folks. So discard this. And then for Google Calendar, I linked the option to import multiple events into Google Calendar. I do this, say, for the beginning of school, I'll import through a CSV file all of our school dates so that it is always in my Google Calendar all at once and I'm not manually adding events one by one. This is great if you manage multiple calendars or have a lot of events that come up. Saves a lot of time rather than manually adding events. All right, we'll move into Google Docs. So new task for everyone, do Control-T or Command-T for Mac users and type in bit.ly/Google Docs template. And then you can make, it won't be file, but it'll be up here. And then you'll be able to duplicate it, which I can't do right now since this is mine. It'll land you on this folder, and we'll quickly walk through some of the templates that I've created for myself, and I recommend that folks generally create templates for themselves for files so that you can easily copy and paste them. So if I go right-click on this, I can make a copy of it, and you can do the same for these files if you want to reference them later. So the first one is meeting notes, especially as you work through different events. This is the template that I use when I work in group projects, and I'll quickly walk you through it. Some of the folks that I work with at school will probably recognize this. The top piece, if you're working in a new document, whatever this first line is, when you go up here to rename the file, it usually says untitled. Then whatever this is will automatically populate with the first line of your document. So it takes you a couple of seconds in terms of naming the file and just to be thoughtful of it. The second thing is, you will notice if you're in Google Docs right now and haven't done this setting before, you will see that all of my headings and different pieces have different colorings to them and are already set up nicely. And so what I've done is up here where it says normal text, you can see these all look different than what your defaults will look like. And why I've done this is, so for example, where it says resources, you can highlight it, and up here at styles, you can go this little arrow and update heading 1 to match it, so that you'll see up here in the URL, it says heading and then garbled letters and numbers. If I were to go to the next heading, you will see it's a different numbers and letters, so that I can easily email a link to exactly this location in the document to someone. So if I were to send it, say, through Gmail, that person would automatically get to this link, stakeholders, from the get-go. And there are all the lovely numbers and letters. So that saves me a little time in terms of pointing people to different places. The other thing that it's very handy for is creating this table of contents. So if you went to insert and then, well, table of contents, which I'm already in, insert table of contents, you can, with those headings, you will automatically be able to create a table of contents like this one with your heading 1s and heading 2. So for example, heading 2 for myself, I've made in this gray and bolded so that I can always reference it. And if you like this style or edit it in any way, you can do options, save as my default styles, so that you can always reference back to them. And that will be, just like for me, when I go to the styles, that is always what I will see. My light blue and bold, oh, it looks like someone is changing it. I'm changing it. And I can go back to normal text. So that's how I've organized my Google Docs, but there are different ways of going at it. And if I were to create different things down here and I wanted to point someone to something, you could insert, say, a bookmark, and that will also give you a specific link to this location in the document, which makes things, again, a lot easier to point to for people. Now, when it comes to working in groups, there are a couple of functionalities that I'll point out. So in this case, if I wanted to point someone to the next meeting notes right here and give someone an action item, I'm going to do Shift FN and then arrow pointed to the left to highlight all of the text to the left of where I had my cursor. So Shift FN left. And then I'm going to do Control Alt M. And you'll see this little dialog box pop up with a comment. If you don't remember the keyboard shortcut, there's this little add a comment box that pops up. And I can type someone, if I do plus, and then say I wanted to assign it to myself, I'll see my email pop up. So plus and then the person's email. And then I can tell them fill out here, and they will get an email with this. So posting that comment, and then that person will get an email and can either respond right here or go back to the document and open it up, which is quite nice. Also, another tip, if you're copying and pasting from different places, I like to do Shift Control V, so not just the standard Control V, Control C, Control V, but if you add in Shift, you can paste just as values and you don't have to worry about the formatting. Another tip is Control F, or Command F for Mac users. It will find anything in the document that you can search for, which is very helpful. So I'll move right along since I'm starting to encroach on Q&A time. I'll quickly mention about project and task management programs. The three main that I've seen used are Asana, Trello, and Wunderlist. And again, it's all a matter of preferences, how you want to set that up. Personally, I use Asana, and the main reason why, this is how I've set it up, and I've set it up different projects for my different classes so that I can easily reference them. And they're also color-coded with my Gmail labels that I have here, so that I always know that my energy management class is in red, and I color-code that the same as with Google Drive, so that it's always consistent what colors I have across the board. Energy will always be red. My energy class will always be in red. So I have all of this so that I can then see in Asana, all of my different class assignments all show up here that I've populated. And I've done this by importing a CSV file, which is another functionality Asana allows for. They also have a great mobile app, and they send me daily reminders of what is due in the coming days, so that I am always more or less on task as best I can. So that's another tool with Google Docs. Another thing too, instead of using project or task management, is to use Google Spreadsheets. So for me, I'll use this in some projects at times, and you can easily use this template if you like it, where I've added all these different status by doing right-clicking the column and doing data validation, so that in the specific cell range, I guess it's in this case C2, it will give me a list of items for done, in progress, to be assigned, delayed, and this is a milestone, so that I can easily have due dates, project names, and owners. And again, with the owners, you can always comment them in by doing Control-Alt-M for comment on your keyboard shortcut, and assigning them different things. So if I wanted to tell myself, fill this out, I could do so, and it would send me an email automatically and tell me, hey, in this cell, please go and fill it out. That's just kind of nice. And always linking different documents here by doing Control-K on that cell, and either different documents, or I can go back to, say, my project template, click on the link, Control-C, go back to the spreadsheet, Control-K, and then paste that link here so that I have that template. And if I pressed enter here, right where it says document, I can change it to document template. So different ways of doing project management and tasks. I will also mention that if you go to the share settings, there are a number of different ways that you can share a document with people, and some of them make project management better than others. So anyone who has the link can view. That means that people that are signed in or not signed into Google can enter that. But if you want to track changes and see who is actually working on it, you might just want to do specific people, so that you have that list of people that you're sharing with. And when you go, say, if you went to File, Version History, See Version History, you could see that I have spent time on this, but then for everyone that is signed in, you would see their name to see what changes they have made. And then you can restore to different versions as needed. So that's another thing, especially with working with groups, that can be quite handy. And in Google Documents itself, this little crayon up here where it says editing mode, if you were to click on it, instead of just editing and making changes, which you would see in the revision history, you could suggest changes, in which case it would look like this. And you would have the suggestion here on the right that people can either accept or reject whoever the owner is, to see that people are doing different things. And it's very similar to Microsoft Word's track changes. So now for all of my classmates that are on the call, I'll briefly talk about Canvas, since there are a couple of things that I think are very helpful for folks. When it comes to Canvas, I've renamed all of the classes that I see on my dashboard so that they make sense, and again, color-coded them to match my Gmail, Google Drive, and Asana by going in the little 3 dots, nicknaming it, and then changing the color of it too. And what that has allowed me to do, if I do Control-1 back to my Gmail, you'll see that a number I've made labels in my Google Drive to be able to automatically, whenever there is this 36120 econ coming in from Canvas, it will automatically label it as my econ class and put it in green, so that when I go to the left and go with my different labels, that will be there. The other thing is you can set up different email notifications in Canvas to be able to get the appropriate notifications, and again, set up filters in Gmail. And finally, using the Canvas mobile app is very helpful. And I skipped over this part very fast because I do want to allow, at least at this point, 7 minutes of Q&A for folks. But I hope this was all very helpful, as much as I ran through it rather fast, and that this will help you all speed up your time so that you can spend less time on your computer and more time out enjoying and changing the world. Thank you all. And so now, if you have any questions, please unmute and let me know.
Melanie, I have a question. This is Pam.
Yes.
Is there something in Google for the Google Gmail that when somebody, that after I send an email, the person who opens it, eventually when they open it, sends a response back that they've opened it? My understanding was
so
Google.
Boomerang, yes. So essentially read receipts, which I think Outlook had forever ago, right? Yeah. So yeah. Boomerang has that functionality, so you can get notified if someone has read it, clicked it, and opened it.
So just add the Boomerang, just add the Boomerang extension then.
Exactly, yeah. And they have a lot of other features. I probably spend more time in my settings for different things than I should, but it allows me to learn these tricks a lot, especially the Control / to find these keyboard shortcuts are very helpful too.
Thanks.
And I will say that I have a lot more tips and tricks to share. This was kind of the highlights. Perhaps in the future we'll do a 201 session that goes into more advanced things, but at least this is the beginning. And to answer some of the chat questions, yes, I will link to the Zoom integration for Google Calendar into the deck, so stay tuned. Let's see, we have video editor says, feel free to watch this talk on how to use your feet to use your mouth while typing long papers. That sounds amazing, and I can't wait to watch it. I do only use Chrome, and Safari is great as well. I think Chrome and Firefox have had the most features and integrations with different things that I've seen out of other browsers. For me, Chrome, because I've now saved it, and one other setting I'll share under settings, if I go out of the search engine, is on startup. So if you were to do search your Chrome settings for on startup, you'll see open the new tab page, continue where you left off, or open a specific page or set of pages. Personally, I always set up Chrome to continue where I left off in case my computer, my dear PC, will crap out and decide to close on me, then I always have that historic of these were all my tabs, and I know that it'll safely save it until the next time I come back on, without having to worry about it or save them as bookmarks or whatnot. So that's also another great tip and why I like Chrome. But to be honest, I started working in Chrome and then never stopped using it, to answer that question. And I also put my email and LinkedIn at the end of the presentation. If you want to reach out and have questions on any of this, hopefully everyone did go to the link bit.ly/digital tips tricks, and we're able to get a copy of this deck. I will update it as well so that if anyone got lost or wanted further details, I will add more in here as well, particularly the Zoom Google Calendar integration. And if you do find that some of these tips were particularly helpful and saved you a lot of time, I always love great emails of people telling me, oh, this particular tip saved me a lot of time, so that I know that in future versions of this workshop, I should particularly highlight that specific tip. At this point, I've saved myself so much time and have learned these tips, particularly the keyboard shortcuts, very well that it's second nature to me almost, to just click around. And even preparing for this workshop, I had forgotten some of these tips and had to really think about, oh wait, I really have to think about every shortcut that I use.
Thanks, Melanie. And yeah, I think this is Dana. And I think it'd be really cool to do, yeah, like a more in-depth look at just maybe spending an hour on like Google Calendar and then maybe having it so then we can walk through it together as you were saying it. Because I tried to keep up a little bit, but I know there was a lot of ground to cover in this webinar, so I wasn't totally quite able to. But yeah, I'd love that in the future.
Absolutely. Happy to. Yeah. And for those that I go to school with, feel free to stop me at any time. As most of my classmates know, I love sharing this content. So I am more than happy to do a personal walk through some of these things, especially I love learning new tips and tricks. So if there's anything that you've discovered, for example, typing with your feet, that sounds fantastic, or moving your mouse with your feet, that you have found, I love learning it, but I also love sharing all of this. And we are right at time. If you want me to stay on, I'm more than happy to. We'll stop the recording. Thank you all so much for attending. As I've mentioned, we'll send out the recording and the slides within the next week. And I hope you all have a great day.